Government Operations Estimates. The committee is meeting today to continue its study on the air defence procurement projects. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to House Order of June 23rd, 2022. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. Regarding the speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do our best we can maintain the consolidated order of speaking of all members, whether participating virtually or in person. I would like to take this opportunity to remind all participants that of this meeting that the screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. With that, I would like to welcome our witnesses here today. And for the opening statements, we will start with Mr. Carroll and followed by Mr. Norante. And so we have 5 minutes. Mr. Carroll, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. With me is my colleague, Patrick Palmer, from the Gripen for Canada team. Saab has a proud history in the defence and security industry, as it dates back over 400 years and includes everything from submarines to fighter jets. At present, we proudly serve the Canadian military with leading products such as the Carl Gustaf weapon system that was provided by Canada to Ukrainian forces, along with several naval systems on board the Navy's Halifax-class warships. As you are likely aware, Saab remains eligible for selection in the Future Fighter Capability Project, having submitted a compliant bid for 88 Gripen fighters to Canada. Not only does Saab meet all mandatory requirements for capability, interoperability, including NORAD and Five Eyes, and the delivery schedule, we also remain the only eligible bidder offering guaranteed pricing and economic benefits equal to the full value of the contract. Saab is the only competitor that committed to build, upgrade and maintain the Future Fighter in Canada, the first made-in-Canada fighter jet. This would create 6,000 high-value jobs across the country, maintained over 40 years, to keep and grow critical aerospace skills within Canada's domestic industry. We partnered with Canada's leading aerospace companies, including CAE and GE in Quebec, IMP Aerospace and Defence in Atlantic Canada, Arcfield in Alberta, Leonardo Canada in Ontario, and many, many more. Our offer also included the creation of 3 centres of excellence: a cyber centre in Toronto, a sensor centre in Vancouver, and an aerospace R&D centre in Montreal. We further committed to the creation of a Gripen Centre, the Canadian home of the Gripen fleet. The Gripen Centre would employ Canadians to maintain and upgrade Gripen in-country, providing Canada with the sovereignty and independence to control the aircraft forever. Recent statements by the government indicated Canada is negotiating cost, delivery schedule and economic benefits with our competitor. There should be no negotiation on these critical elements. These elements of the bidder's response were to be committed to and then evaluated as part of the competitive process. The fact that there are ongoing negotiations should be concerning to members of the committee and all Canadians. Saab is ready to provide Gripen fighters to Canada, as stated in our offer. In addition to the fighter program, I would like to speak to another opportunity relevant to air defence procurement: ground-based air defence. Current world events have highlighted the importance of protecting critical infrastructure and populated areas from air threats, be they aircraft, drones or incoming fire. Saab's mobile short-range air defence solution, MSHORAD, has been designed to meet such threats and can be rapidly deployed for use wherever and whenever it is needed. Canada has identified ground-based air defence as a critical and urgent requirement, given that it has no GBAD systems to defend against aerial threats, including the emerging threat from drones. Unlike traditional ground-based air defence systems, Saab's MSHORAD solution can detect, classify and eliminate small, low-flying targets with high accuracy. This capability is also important beyond a traditional conflict scenario. For example, our system, because of its unique mobility and flexibility, can be deployed at any location where security is of the utmost importance, such as a major sporting event or a meeting of heads of states. Canada has recently released 2 urgent operational requirements closely associated with the broader ground-based air defence procurement, and we are confident that Saab's M-SHORAD solution meets the needs of the armed forces for all 3 programs. Saab is supportive of these urgent operational requirements and encourages the swift acquisition of this capability. As with the Future Fighter program, Saab is confident it can meet the desired capability and delivery schedule requirements for Canada, and in the case of ground-based air defence, could deliver an interim capability within 12 to 18 months and a full operational capability within 2 years of contract award. We appreciate the opportunity to appear before this committee and welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. And now, Mr. Norante, 5 minutes, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Francesco Norante. I'm the president of Leonardo Canada. I also want to acknowledge that tomorrow is going to be the Truth and Reconciliation Day. So we are all in talks with every Canadian, so we are very proud of that. Leonardo Canada is part of a larger Leonardo Group. Leonardo Group is one of the top defense companies in the world. Last year we closed our revenues 14.1 billion, so over euros, so more than 30 billion Canadians. We are present in 150 countries around the world, 26 countries where we have production, and the majority of our revenues are coming from international market. We also invested in our supply chain extensively. We have more than 8,000 suppliers and significant presence here in Canada as well. Leonardo is active and present in all the spectrum of the defense and aerospace. We have 5 key areas: air, land, maritime, space, and cyber. In terms of aircraft and helicopters, we manufacture helicopters for all the purposes. We are proudly supporting the search and rescue operation in Canada with the Cormoran, and this is also the largest business we have in Canada. So we also present in electronic defense, and we cover basically all the spectrum of the defense electronics, from US command and control systems, radars, and cybersecurity. We also manufacture aircraft. We are one of the few, if not the only one, defense company that heavily invested in jet trainer. So we have a basic trainer and advanced trainer, which are the 2 that we're going to offer in Canada for the next campaign. And we also have we are very involved in the space business. We are in all the major space program, and particularly Canada, we support Telesat for the low orbit constellation program. We have a JV with Thales, so we manufacture the satellite for the next generation of satellite in Canada. We also have a real focus on customer support and training. So we do the entire spectrum from manufacture to support, which is the activity we are going to implement here in Canada, so we are able to support all our fleets. And Leonardo Canada has been established in 2018 here in Ottawa. Our office are here in Ottawa. And with the purpose is to expand the business, but also to consolidate what we have. We've been present in Canada for 50 years in different configuration, and now Leonardo Canada is responsible for all the activity in the defense and civilian market. In Canada, we have 5 service centers for helicopters across the country. We have more than 50 helicopters flying across the country, and we cover search and rescue, air ambulance, and also private purposes. We also have more than 40 ATR, so they are the medium aircraft for transportation. We are around 400 people. We own 3 subsidiaries: Leonardo DRS Canada, based in Canada, which is specialized in electro-optics and naval communication. DRS Pivotal Power, which is focused on power units, and then Leonardo Canada Electronics, which is specialized in simulation and training for electronic warfare. We also are almost at the completion of the deployment of over 30 weather radars for Environment Canada, and also we will deploy more than 20 radars across all the main airports in Canada. We have an extended supply chain. We purchased more than 3,000 engines from Pratt & Whitney. We have partnership with CAE, all the key players. And in terms of investment, we invested almost 400 million last year in the supply chain. And finally, I would like to thank all of you for this opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening statements. And with that, we'll go into questions, and we will start with Mr. McCauley for 6 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. I'm going to split my time trying to keep it half and half between the two. Mr. Naranchi, I'll start with you, please. Leonardo was the main other bidder in the fixed-wing search and rescue procurement debacle. There's no other word for it, really, for what's gone on. Are you familiar with what has gone wrong with the winning bidder? And would you get a comment on it? I realize you're a competitor, but we've heard stories it won't be certified. Search and rescue personnel jumping out the back of the plane will be killed.
So what
Other
I can
issues?
say is that Leonardo presented a very compelling proposal. We stand a very effective proposal for Canada. We would have obviously invested significantly in country, and as I said before, we invest a lot in research and development, but we were not selected, so I'm not able to comment.
The plane that you were offering, how many of those are currently operating around the world?
I don't have the total number, but it's a significant number, yes.
Yeah, and it's a mature design. If the government had chosen Leonardo on that day several years back, would they be functioning, built in the air, operating right now?
I'm not able to comment the status of the program because we were not selected. So what I can say, I repeat, so my company was definitely prepared to offer this solution for Canada, but I would say that now we moved on, so it's been 6 years ago, so we're focused on other propositions.
Sure. The various requirements in the RFP, were they easily adaptable for the plane you were offering? Were they reasonable, unreasonable?
It's complicated to say right now because obviously we were not selected, so I don't know what is the status of the program. I'm not, to be honest, we have not looked at this opportunity any longer, so.
The plane you offered, is it currently still being manufactured?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to switch over to Saab. Thanks for the information on the ground protection and especially against the drones, et cetera, because it's not something that we've addressed yet in this committee. It's very interesting. I just want to ask you, with Saab, it's been a very long procurement process. Not quite as long as it is, I think, for us to buy pistols, but certainly getting up there. How do you feel like Saab has been treated? Has the process been fair and transparent, do you believe, all along the way? Are there parts that you think we should have been improved upon?
Thank you for the question. I believe that the process was positive. We had a lot of interaction with the Canadian government throughout the process. But my colleague here has been part of it for longer than I have, so I would defer to him to answer the rest of the question.
So again, to echo Simon's position, we certainly felt that the process was very well defined. There was a lot of engagements and a lot of interfaces with the customer. And up until the latter part of last year, where the customer moved to identify that we were offered a fully compliant bid, including interoperability and security. So we were able to demonstrate that we could meet the 2 eyes and the 5 eyes requirements.
I'm sorry, so the Gripen did meet the requirements for full interoperability and all the other requirements?
Yes, we've passed all of those requirements, and that, I think, was the end of last year where the Government of Canada announced that both ourselves and our competitor met those requirements. That said, one of the things I'll draw attention to is post that period of time, they entered into, I would say, more of a quiet period where there wasn't a lot of back and forth. But one of the confusions that we have right now is one of the minister's announcements that they're negotiating cost, economic benefits, and deliveries for that program. And I guess from our perspective, those elements were to be clearly defined and committed to as part of the RFP. And ours was, and we're committed to that, and we're committed to the deliveries.
So, I'm sorry, so they asked you to pre-commit as part of the RFP, and now they're stating, that's nice, but now we're going to negotiate further on these items that were laid out in the RFP. Actually, it sounds very similar to the fixed wing search and rescue RFP, where we'll have a 30,000-page RFP, but we'll change the rules afterwards. What would they be negotiating with the chosen, with the F-35 when there's no ITBs allowed as part of the I-35 or the F-35 program? When you talk about economic benefits, do you know?
Well, thank you for that question, but we're not really privy to that level of what they're negotiating and what the final result will be. The only thing we can talk about is what we've committed to Canada, and what we committed to Canada is a fully compliant.
Donc, nous avons offert un avion, 88 avions qui seraient prêts à fonctionner.
We're having a translation issue. The translation went to French. Yeah. So I apologize, but
okay.
Just... we okay now? Okay. Sorry about that. There just was a little bit of translation issue. I think we're corrected now. So
How much time do I have?
you basically, when it happened, I'll say you've got 30 seconds.
Okay. Just very quickly, sake of argument, government changes its mind, chooses Gripen tomorrow. When would delivery start, ballparkish? How fast a turnaround?
Again, as per our commitment during the RFP process, we were committed to the 2025-2027 timeframe with respect to the initial operating capability and full operating capability by 2031. Really, nothing has changed.
For all 88?
By 2031, all 88 had to be delivered.
Thanks very much. Sorry for the interruption.
It's okay.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. Baines for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to recognize that my questions are coming from the traditional territories of the Musqueam and Coast Salish peoples. My first question is for Mr. Narante. Recognizing that tomorrow is the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, the government has been working on reconciliation through many initiatives, including 5% commitment in ensuring Indigenous procurement as a part of its mandate. Can you please give an example of what your company is doing to help with Indigenous procurement in the military sector?
Thank you for the question. I think Leonardo is doing pretty well on that front. We're very proud. We have a memorandum of understanding with Indigenous communities in both Manitoba and Saskatchewan. We also have signed an agreement with a fully owned Indigenous catering company, and if we will be awarded with a contract, it's going to be several hundred millions that will be injected in those communities. We are trying to do not only for particularly current campaigns, but also for other activities we have currently in place, and we try to involve Indigenous community in our international supply chain.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to shift to November 2020. The federal government deemed Leonardo's proposal for the Cormorant midlife upgrade unaffordable and began investigating alternative solutions. Leonardo submitted an updated proposal in March of 2021. So my question is, was the budget the only reason the government provided when they've informed you that they would not be moving forward with your proposal?
Regarding the Cormorant, is an open negotiation at the moment, so I'm not I'm not comfortable and allowed to openly discuss about open competition. What I can say is that we have been working constantly with PSPC and the integrated team. Even when I left the office, the team was working collaboratively on this bid. So I personally think that any activity has been fully responded to the government. So
Sure. And your new submission, would you be able to answer how your new submission differs from the one that was refused, or is that?
our submission in reality was never refused. They were asked further clarification, and we answer all of them in terms of requirement, adjustment, etc. So, but it's an ongoing discussion within the team, so it's almost a daily conversation, and I think we have achieved what the PSPC wanted.
Okay, so you've added some changes to that. Okay, in May 2021, Leonardo Canada and Babcock Canada announced your joint bid for Canada's future aircrew training program, with a contract award expected in 2023. So what exactly will you be procuring for the CAF, and what period of time does the contract cover?
So once again, this is another open bid, so I cannot enter in a discussion of what we are submitting. We are in the final phase of the RFP, and then the contract is going to be awarded in 2024. So this is training, the new training syllabus for the Air Forces. We think that our proposition is really compelling. We will generate enormous amount of benefit for Canada in terms of research and development, job creation in areas where at the moment the economy is suffering. So we are very confident of what we are going to submit.
Okay, and the training systems, do you have a cost estimate for that? The training systems and the instructors over the 20-year period?
Yes, we have everything, but as you can imagine, this is sensitive information, and we are an open forum, and the competition is not completed yet.
Okay, so regionally, where will the training facilities be located? Would you be able to share that?
Yeah, the training facility are the existing bases, so between Manitoba and Saskatchewan, so is where the training activities will happen. So this has already been established since the beginning, so it's not going to change.
Anything in British Columbia?
In British Columbia, we engage with all the regional agencies, so there's going to be, we are constantly engaging with the supply chain and across the country, so British Columbia included.
Okay, thank you. And if I have time, I'd like to ask the next question to Mr. Carroll. Your experience in the Navy and working at Saab is extensive. Can you speak about your experience as a warfare officer in the Australian Navy and what you feel are the top 3 important quality factors when using military equipment?
Thank you for the question. Obviously a personal-based question, but I think the top 3 would be confidence in your equipment, making sure that you have good interaction between defence and industry, which I think is probably the number 1 that I would put as key. Early interaction between defence and industry is critical in making sure that not only are the requirements met, but that they are understood and shaped correctly. And I would put that as the priority. The other thing from a military perspective is making sure that you know how to use your equipment. Just because you have the equipment doesn't mean you have the capability. And I think industry plays an important role in helping our militaries understand how to get the best out of their equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Now we will go to Ms. Vignola for 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much to our witnesses for being here today. It's very appreciated. In the committee, we have heard that the F-35 was preferred because it was a 5th generation aircraft, and the Gripen is a 4th generation aircraft, which has limited abilities against the Russian Air Force. And there are also security requirements under NORAD that we work with the United States on. You say, though, that you meet all requirements. So I would like to hear from you about the operational capacities. What are the advantages of the Gripen over the F-35?
As you correctly stated, we are fully compliant with the interoperability and security assessment piece of the program, and we remain committed to that bid that meets those NORAD and Five Eyes compliances. Regarding the technical capability, I'll hand over to my colleague to respond to that part.
And to further Simon's explanation, when Canada and any country buys a fighter jet, they're buying a fighter jet for an extended period of time. They're looking at it for decades. So what's relevant today is not necessarily relevant tomorrow from a threat perspective, from a technology perspective, and from others. When we look forward, what we've designed is the Gripen is designed to be credible, relevant, and state-of-the-art for the life of the program. And the notion of fourth and fifth generation is actually more of a marketing term than anything else. What we do is we've gone away from generations and we've looked at it as a generational less fighter. We want to make sure that fighter is relevant 20 and 30 years down the road when we still need it. So what we've done is we've created a fighter that's easily adaptable, easily upgradable. To give you an example, some of the things in terms of upgrading a typical fighter would take years to do it. The way the software is developed, the way the software is developed, the mission systems. What we've done is we've created an environment so that the software is easily adaptable, and now you can do things in a matter of hours or days or weeks as opposed to years. So as new technology becomes available to respond to new threats, whether you're introducing a new missile capability or whether you're introducing a new sensor, a new radar, our fighter is easily adaptable to meet those requirements for the life of the program.
Merci, c'est intéressant. Alors, si Saab...
Thank you, that's interesting. If Saab says that it was the only one left that was going to guarantee the budget, the benefits, why do you think the government chose Lockheed Martin and is negotiating with them where you say that everything was ready to go for you?
We can't really comment on why the government chose Lockheed Martin. We can comment on the fact that we did offer a proposal that was no compromises to Canada. It offered budget stability. It offered the right capability for the aircraft in meeting all the interoperability and security assessments, along with the actual operational and technical capability of the aircraft. And it offered a 100% guaranteed economics benefits package that would benefit Canada now and well into the future. The economics benefit package gave Canada the opportunity to control the aircraft well into the future. And as per my statement, the number of centres of excellence and facilities we were looking to set up in Canada were to be employing Canadians in provinces such as Quebec and all the other provinces that I mentioned before to make sure that we put maximum return into Canada for the life of the program.
En somme, ce que vous nous dites...
So what you're saying is that your plane is versatile, it can be modified, the repairs and construction would have been done here, and you would offer a package deal, a full package for Canada, and then Canada could make any modifications necessary to meet requirements over time. Is that correct? But you were refused.
Your statement regarding what we were offering Canada is correct, yes. We were looking to put not only the transfer of technology, but also the ownership of the IP to Canada so that they could have control of their aircraft over the period of the life of the aircraft. Patrick, did you want to add anything there?
I would just probably emphasize that it's far greater than just to do the maintenance. It's also to do the sustainment and the upgrade path. When you look at Canadians and how we use our equipment, we use that equipment for a very, very long period of time, probably much longer than sometimes it's originally anticipated. And in order to do that, you have to have access, as Simon said, to the intellectual property, to the knowledge, and what we've committed to do, and we're still committed to do it, is to bring that capability into Canada as part of the Griffin Centre in regional municipality of Montreal.
Merci. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. Maybe I'll start with Mr. Carroll. Mr. Palmer, you know, your presentation that you gave us identifies Griffin as the only made-in-Canada solution that would create new long-term jobs in Canada. Can you discuss how labour market shortages have impacted Saab Canada's operations?
Thanks for the question. At present, we have 50 odd employees across Canada, and like all other, not just defence industry companies, but other industry companies, the fight for talent is really quite intense at the moment. The labour market shortages are something that we are working towards. We are looking at working with a number of different organisations and looking into universities. And as part of the Griffin for Canada program, we were putting together an educational program where we were looking to engage those universities and also some First Nations communities.
Right now, is your focus on temporary foreign workers to fill the need?
With our current operations in Canada, no.
Okay. We're hearing lots of that happening right now. I really appreciate you raising that we're on the eve of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Calls to Action 92 is very explicit. And it calls on the corporate sector to adopt the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as a reconciliation framework and to apply its principles, norms, standards to corporate policy and core operational activities involving Indigenous peoples and their lands and resources. And this would include, and I'm just reading this call to action, but not limited to the following: commit to meaningful consultation, building respectful relationships, obtaining the free, prior and informed consent of Indigenous peoples before proceeding with an economic development projects, and ensuring that Aboriginal peoples have equitable access to jobs, skills training, education opportunities in the corporate sector, and Aboriginal communities gain long-term sustainable benefits from economic development projects. And lastly, that education is provided for management and staff on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, treaties in Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, and Aboriginal Crown relations. And this will require skills-based training in intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. How do you feel you're measuring up to meet that call to action? And where are you doing? Where are you progressing, and where are you failing?
Sure. Obviously, an extremely important issue given the current climate and the climate from the past as well. I would say that before I hand to my colleague, we have identified that as a concern and an opportunity for us to work with the Indigenous communities in Canada. I will ask Patrick to speak about what we were looking at as part of the Future Fighter program, but I'm happy to announce that we are already working with one of the Indigenous First Nations in Vancouver Island on a program that we're trialling. Only last week they started the trial.
And where in Vancouver Island is that?
It's with the Sauk Nation.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about the...
I guess the only thing I'll add is that as part of the Future Fighter Capability Program and our offer, we've recognized that as a very key component, and we've had quite a few discussions and meetings with respect to how to support them from an academia perspective and bring them, some of the talent and some of the skill sets that would leverage them and, add to their future.
Would you like to add as well?
Yes, thank you for the question. I can add, I can echo what my colleagues have said, but also Leonardo in the current proposition have an extensive involvement of Indigenous communities. We also, separately from FACT, Cormor, and the other current programs, we established the relationship with the Indigenous community. We also supporting an organization called Orbis, that has the goal to detect diabetes on young indigenous people in the most remote communities. So they use an aircraft. We install technology with them. They go in this community, and these communities are not accessible by roads. So the only way into these communities is by plane. So we leverage our technology, research and development, innovation, plus we hope we can do some better for these communities.
I imagine the CC295 would help get to these communities as well. Maybe just in 30 seconds, can you tell us your top disappointment in the procurement process and what needs to be fixed? That's why we're here today. That's what we're working on in this study. I'll let you give 30 seconds each, why don't you? Just
I guess from Saab's perspective, certainly the Canadian procurement process is very, very well defined. It's highly bureaucratic, but it's very, very well defined, and I think we have a very good appreciation for it. I guess from a disappointment perspective, from me personally, is that I think that the Gripen for Canada offer is second to none. It's unparalleled in terms of our offer for economic benefits to Canada and the future sustainment and support of that aircraft in Canada. So we still believe that it's the right fighter for Canada for the reasons that Simon had talked about earlier.
right. Sir?
So in general, procurement can be improved in any country. So I've been working in several countries, so this is a common across the board. I would say that defense procurement is particularly complex and complicated. So my experience here in Canada has been positive. We had a very good interaction with the PSPC, with the integrated team. I would say I would be disappointed after I lose my bids, but at the moment I'm still in the honeymoon. So, but I would say so far the interaction has been excellent. So I couldn't ask better than this.
Thank you. Now we'll go to our second round, and we'll go to Mr. McCauley for 5 minutes.
Great, thanks. And you'll have to excuse us, gentlemen. I'm going to introduce my motion. I will use my time rather than committee time for it. It's the one put on notice a couple days ago regarding having Irving and PSPC, or PSPC, appear to discuss Indigenous hiring and Indigenous corporations in light of tomorrow being Reconciliation Day, and some of the fine items that Mr. Johns brought up in very good detail about some of the obligations we have. It can be considered part of the diversity one, but I think also part of the shipbuilding program as well. So I'm not sure that in the context of its study on the national shipbuilding strategy, the committee invite President of Irving Shipyard, ISI, representatives from the company, as well as the Deputy Minister of PSPC, to appear before the committee to answer questions concerning the recruitment of foreign workers, hiring process of hiring Indigenous Canadians and Indigenous businesses in the construction of the Canadian surface combatants, and obviously the EOPS as well.
Have we been able? So members know.
This was one that was put on notice.
It was put on
ago.
notice. You received it back on Monday. However, it's just been sent out to you again, just in case you want to see that. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to add was,
Okay.
obviously the very large news that we saw last week or the week before about bringing in foreign workers to the into the NSS, when very clearly we've seen all along the intent was to build up capacity here among our workers, skills among Canadian workers. And then also in light of, again, Reconciliation Day tomorrow and the very, very fine points, detailed points Mr. Johns brought up, I think it's incumbent upon us to have the two main people involved explain the issue and what they're doing toward providing Indigenous contracts and hiring and training of Indigenous.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. I see Mr. Johns and Mr. Housefather, so I'll go to Mr. Johns first.
First, I think it's a great motion. I want to thank my colleague for bringing it forward, Mr. McCauley. But we do want to make some just friendly amendments, and we're hoping he's open to it. After workers and we want to strike hiring process of and just put hiring of members of equity deserving groups, comma, including Indigenous, we want Indigenous capitalized, or contracting of businesses, and, cross Indigenous out, businesses owned and operated by members of equity deserving groups in the construction of the Canadian surface combatants. And I just sent the amendments out to everybody. So I sent it to you, the clerk.
If you can get a copy to
If
the
that's
clerk.
okay, that could go out to everybody.
I'm generally fine with that. I'm just worried that we may lose a focus, as we've seen in the past studies with this, that it gets buried, that specific issue of the hiring of Indigenous or Indigenous businesses. I just want to make sure it doesn't get buried, and that's why I specifically put that, so we could study that specifically. When we look at the NSS, it's going to be 20, 30 years before these ships are done. Plenty of time to develop Canadians and talent. So I just want to make sure we don't lose that focus, if you understand what I mean.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
But otherwise, I'm generally fine with
Okay.
it if it means
Mr.
Mr.
Johns,
Gordon will
do you have
support.
that in both languages? We can't distribute it unless you have it in both languages.
So I just worked on it just now.
In English, and the interpreter can follow it. I'll send a copy
we
to
will
them.
get, well, if you would give us a copy, the clerk will read it into the record.
I've got a copy of it.
Okay. So the clerk will read it into the record.
So the amendment is essentially to strike the words hiring process of and add after the word hiring of members of equity deserving groups, including Indigenous peoples, and adding the word contracting of businesses owned and operated by members of equity deserving groups.
If you would read it as amended, please.
All right, the text of the motion, if the amendment were adopted, would read as follows. That, in the context of its study on the National Shipbuilding Strategy, the committee invite the president of Irving Shipbuilding Incorporated and representatives from the company, as well as the Deputy Minister of Public Services and Procurement Canada, to appear before the committee to answer questions concerning the recruitment of foreign workers and the hiring of members of equity-deserving groups, including Indigenous peoples, or contracting of businesses owned and operated by members of equity-deserving groups in the construction of the Canadian surface combatants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Housefather, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to speak to the principal motion, not really the amendment. So perhaps I could come back when we determine whether the amendment goes through or not.
Sorry, Mr. Housefather, can you repeat that? My mic goes on, and when it goes on, I can't hear in my microphone. So if you repeat that, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I was just saying I wanted to speak to the principal motion, not the amendment. So perhaps you could put me on the list after we've determined what happens with the amendment.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? And I'm not seeing any. And okay. Is there any disagreement with the amendment? And I'm seeing everyone there's good. Okay, so Mr. Housefather discussing the motion as amended.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. And I also agree that it's a very good and timely motion that Mr. McCauley has brought forward. I think it is important to note that we have sort of heard from people on this issue. 98% of Irving's workforce is Canadian. Irving has its Pathways to Shipbuilding program, where it has members of the Black community in Nova Scotia, members of Indigenous communities that are studying at Nova Scotia Community College in areas like welding, et cetera. And those people are going straight to work at Irving. Pretty much 100% of them get hired following the degree. So I was just wondering, and again, obviously up to Mr. Macaulay, if he would consider adding the Nova Scotia Community College to be a witness as well, given that that community college is the one that is in partnership with Irving to give pathways to shipbuilding for minority communities. And I think it would be useful to hear from them as well in the context of this study.
Mr. Hausfar, are you moving that as an amendment?
I just wanted to hear if my colleague, Mr. Macaulay,
Okay.
agrees to it. If he did, I would be happy to.
So right at this point in time, you're asking Mr. Macaulay if he has consideration of that, and go ahead, Mr. Macaulay.
If there's support on your side for we can just settle this quickly and move forward, vote on it, then fine. My biggest concern is, again, it's a 20, 30-year project. We're flying in foreigners to work on this. I'm sure they're wonderful people, but we're flying in people from out of the country. I'd like to hear specifically why, I have First Nations capable people in Alberta. Why are we not making that commitment to them over a 20 or 30-year period to train and upgrade those skills and so on and so on. But if you want to bring them in and we can vote on this and move forward and get back to our witnesses, then perfect. Happy to.
Okay, fine. Then I just moved to amend it to add Nova Scotia Community College as a witness.
Yep.
So we have an amendment to the amended motion, and I'm looking around the room. Is there consensus? I'm seeing thumbs up for the amendment to the amended motion. Is there any further discussion on the amendment or to the amended motion? We'll leave it at that. And I'm not seeing. Okay, so all in favor of the motion as amended? And I'm seeing unanimous hands up. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon Anthony.
Thank you very much. And with that, I thank the witnesses for bearing with us as we dealt with that issue. We'll go to Mr. Kazmierczuk, and I'm looking, we have 10 minutes left. So I am going to change the time frame and go 4 minutes around the table. And we'll go 2 minutes with Mr. Johns and Ms. Vignola. Okay? So 4 minutes, Mr. Kazmierczuk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and terrific work by the committee today, terrific collaboration. Mr. Narante, I read with interest the Cormorant Trophy that is handed out every year to a worthy helicopter rescue team. And last year, of course, it was the first time that a joint U.S.-Canada team received such recognition for a heroic rescue mission. And it was described as operating in some of the most severe weather conditions known. And I just wanted to ask you that the Cormorant has provided over 100,000 flight hours for the Royal Canadian Air Force. And I wanted to ask during that time, what have we learned about the Cormorant and its capabilities?
Well, I think what we'll learn is, in my personal opinion, is the most suited platform out there to do this type of rescue missions, especially in areas across the Atlantic and the Arctic. So it's a platform that is unique, and the midlife upgrade of the Cormorant is even better. So it's been successfully delivered in different countries, Norway using very well. So we are convinced that this will give us in Canada an advantage. It will help to rescue more people, so it will diminish the fatalities on these critical conditions. So you even saw last year in British Columbia the Cormorant operation, how successful it was. So we think the new platform is going to be much, much better and more advanced. So we're looking at the next 20 years of operations.
Okay, terrific. And obviously with seeing that with climate change, seeing more severe disruptions, more severe weather conditions that our rescue crews have to operate in, what advantage, how much more important is it to make sure that you have the right mix of platform and also training for our search and rescue men and women?
Well, your question is well posed. So I think there is a technical requirement, and Cormoran is currently the only platform out there that is fully compliant to the requirements of the Government of Canada for search and rescue operations. You're looking at new capabilities, advanced capabilities that they're not present in other platform at the moment. So Leonardo invested years and years of research and development to be sure that we can offer to our ultimate client, in this case is the Canadian Forces, the best machine out there. Obviously, training is the second part of the puzzle, so people need to be trained, but this is there is artificial intelligence involved, so there are additional capabilities that the machine can do to diminish human error. So the new Cormorant is going to be mind-blowing for the users in Canada.
Okay, thank you very much. And a question for Mr. Carroll. Obviously, Gripen is arguably one of the best fighter jets in Europe. But we've seen in the last number of months, we've seen the F-35 win bids in European countries, whether it's 2018 in Belgium, 2020 in Poland, Switzerland, Finland, Germany, Czech, all selected the F-35, and they all operate within the same theater of operations, arguably. Can I ask what advantage does it have, for example, for a country that is going to be operating in that theater to, again, follow suit and to follow the same plane and platform and acquire the same plane and platform that other European countries are acquiring?
Thanks for the question. I'll defer to my colleague, but I'll come back at the end if there's something else.
And if we can...
I guess the way I would answer that question is...
Sorry, Mr. Palmer. If we can, I hate to, but 30 seconds if we can. I hate to put a time strain on you.
I'll do my best. What I would say is I can talk about the capability of Gripen, and I can't talk about the various countries in terms of why they choose different things, but I will say about the capability of Gripen and how formidable it is and how relevant and how upgradable it is and how current it is. But I will also say that if you look at that environment and you're putting all your eggs in one basket and you have an issue with one where one of them isn't flying, then you're not able to do any missions. You're not able to have any mission success at all. So there is some arguments too as well to not all have the same equipment, whether they be airframes or aircraft or fighter jets or anything. So again, I'll talk to you about the capability of Gripen. I can't talk to you about why other countries have chosen.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Ms. Vignola for 2 minutes.
I will be quite concise. Sweden is a northern country. I think everybody can agree on that. And Canada as well has a huge Arctic region. So what are the advantages of the Gripen in Arctic regions?
Gripen is designed to operate in the Arctic. It's designed to operate in extreme temperatures, both hot and cold. But it's really proven to be operable in the Arctic. As you know, operating in Canada's far north is incredibly taxing and incredibly hard on not only the equipment but also the people and everything else. Gripen is definitely designed for that activities. When you look at what's happening around the world today and you look at the threats that Sweden faces, we face the same threats. Sweden, from a proximity perspective, they have interactions negatively with Russia all the time. So the Gripen was designed to meet those threats and to operate in that environment and to operate very well in that environment. So I think the Gripen is a proven capable aircraft operating in the north.
Merci. Rapidement, je vais revenir sur le...
Very quickly, you say that you meet all the requirements. We have that in writing, but the government decided to choose Lockheed Martin. Do you think that there was undue pressure on the government for it to make that choice?
I can't comment on what transpired between the Canadian and the US government because, quite simply, we don't know. That said, we are very confident that our fully compliant Gripen remains the best fighter for Canada. And as mentioned in our opening comments, Canada's decision to move into the finalisation phase to negotiate with the competitor to determine cost, benefits and deliveries that are mandatory requirements as part of the program are inconsistent with the FFC procurement guidance that we were given.
Thank you, Ms. Vignola. We'll go to Mr. Johns for 2 minutes.
The presentation slide regarding the ground-based air defence references opportunities to streamline the procurement process. Can you maybe elaborate on what opportunities you see in this regard, Mr. Carroll or Mr. Palmer?
Opportunities to streamline?
Yeah, the procurement process.
Okay. Based on the fact... Sorry, am I still going?
Yeah, sorry, I was interrupted, I think. Yeah.
Based on the fact that this has been issued as an urgent operational requirement, we have looked at all possibilities to provide the capability as soon as possible. Some of those have looked at what is obviously in stock and what is available and how we can work with potential other partners to provide capability to Canada in the soonest possible timeframe.
Okay. Do you want to speak to it? I know you're all like a little timid of it because you're wanting contracts with the government, but we're really trying to get down to the nitty-gritty of how we can improve the procurement process and what's going on. So I'd like to hear a little bit more, ways where there is some shortfalls compared to maybe what's going on in other countries around the world.
I mean, on the specific opportunity, I can say that Leonardo is already providing some of this technology. For example, in UK, we deployed some of the counter surveillance at the Heathrow Airport in the last few years. So there is availability of this type of technology. The streamline can be done using a combination of existing technology and maybe customization for Canada.
Okay. Do you have anything that you want to add around the process itself that you would like to see improved or that you can highlight as a top?
I think as we raised earlier, the process is well defined, but it is extremely exhaustive. And some of the information that is requested in programs like fighter programs, where there is a lot of technology involved, that information is, traditionally available as part of further negotiations rather than at bid time. And I think that requires quite a lot of government-to-government involvement and approvals to release some of that information. And I think the detail with which that was requested was different to other programs and other procurements that we've looked at internationally.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Now we'll go to Mr. Lobb for 4 minutes.
Okay, thanks very much. I apologize to Mr. Gord, Mr. Johns there. Kelly was causing a distraction there, so we're just trying to get things straightened around here. Yeah, anytime. One point and maybe naive question here, but you did bring it up. And, airlines around the world don't just go with one airplane. They have a number of different manufacturers with their fleet that they have. And I think back to Boeing's issues they've had going back 2-3 years ago with the Supermax issue and that would screw up. And I'm just wondering, are there other air forces out there that, that have a number of different models, or is it just you pick one and you go for the whole thing?
No, there are a number of air forces that have multiple fighter jets in their in service.
Okay. Now, are there any the size of Canada that would have that?
I think we need to be careful when we talk about whether it's the size of Canada or the size of the Air Force.
The size of the Air Force then.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I know that there are some other countries within Asia, for example, that might have some older legacy aircraft that are still flown as fighter jets, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Now, as far as what else Saab has to offer for air defence, what other products do you see that would really help Canada get up to date and current with our air defence?
I would focus on the mobile short-range air defence system that we proposed and that we gave some information on. That system provides a unique level of flexibility in that it is not a one type of system. You can have multiple firing units and multiple radars that can be moved to the location required for that air defence, and it's not something that is necessarily set in a specific location and then has to stay there. The idea of the system was to be designed such that the radar could be relocated at short notice, and the firing units likewise go with that radar. If all of a sudden you needed to remove the firing unit from the platform and leave it as a more permanent fixture, then that can be done very quickly by a small team of people.
Where do they make that one?
That's made in Sweden, in Karlskoga.
Okay. Yep. Oh, thanks. And
sorry, I should mention though that we are obviously, should we be selected, would look at multiple opportunities to engage Canadian industry to assist with that.
Yeah, definitely. And just to close, to Mr. Narante with the Cormorant helicopter, one of the most famous Canadian helicopter pilots grew up down the road for me with the Cormorant, Jeff Powell, and he's won a Governor General's Award. He flies a helicopter. He flies a Cormorant for the Coast Guard, and was the first Canadian to fly with the U.S. Coast Guard around Washington, and just grew up down the road for me and went to high school. So he's one of your top guns there, I'd say.
Very pleased to hear. I don't know if it's possible, I would like to maybe add a comment.
Sure.
We were talking about efficiency on procurement and streamline the process, but I was thinking, for example, we are bidding for FACT, for the future recruit training. We are manufacturer, but also offering the services for the entire fleet. So our jet, for example, all the phases of the training from FACT fleet has no bird replacement when it's going to happen. So we can offer everything. So logistics is going to be shared, and all these type of activities, in terms of services, support, and maintenance, could be shared across all these three programs. So this, for example, could be an efficiency for the procurement process.
I mean, this was perfect. Thank you very much. And I'm impressed at how well you almost finished right on the button, so I really appreciate that. We have one last questioner, and we go to Mr. Housefather for 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to both companies for coming in today. It's very much appreciated, and I definitely appreciate your role as suppliers and potential suppliers to the government. I did want to thank SAB for providing the Carl Gustav that we sent to Ukraine, and I also wanted to you just note that the F-35 versus the Gripen issue. There have been 6 European countries in the last 4 years that have also chosen the F-35, Finland being the latest earlier this year. So we don't have Lockheed here to talk about the functionality of their offering. We don't have, this isn't meant to be a competition between the two. That's still an open contract process, where theoretically no contract has been signed yet. So I'd rather stay away from that. And I'd like to move to another area. You talked about the ground defense and the MSHORAD, which I think is mobile short range air defense, as you said. I understand there was a first live system firing that took place in Sweden a couple of weeks ago. Could you talk to me about how new that product is and whether any other countries have already purchased it?
As I mentioned in my previous response, the MSHORAD is made up of a number of different components. Some of those components are fully operational and at what we call technical readiness level 9. Other components are part of that demonstration that you correctly mentioned, and we're looking at how we can put that system into many markets into the future, with Canada being one of them.
No, and I understood that. I mean, I understand that there's different parts of the new solution, some of which are already proven in other capacities and some not. I was just wondering if any other country had actually acquired prototypes or alpha versions of the new system and were actively engaged with you in testing.
I would have to speak to our team in Sweden, who at the moment are controlling the development, controlling the marketing and the proposal side of activities related to that product.
No worries. I wanted to also ask you about another new facility that SAB is setting up in India to make weapon systems. Can you talk to us about the expansion of your manufacturing outside of Sweden, and what new weapon systems are going to be built in India, for example?
SAB has recently engaged with what we call a multi-domestic policy, where we look to set up certain countries in the world as operational countries, and the ones that we have at the moment are in the US, Australia, the UK, and Germany. With regards to India, I do know that facility has been established to manufacture the Carl Gustaf weapons. Outside of that, I'm unaware, and would again have to refer to my colleagues in Sweden.
No worries. I just want to end with one other question to you, if I have time. On the MSHORAD, you mentioned that as a possibility. What other products, or what? I don't like to use the word products because what you're manufacturing is a product, but it's obviously something far more to the armed forces. What other solutions do you have that you recommend that this committee, think about in terms of our study that may be beneficial to the Canadian Armed Forces, leaving aside the jets, please?
For air defence in particular?
For air defence, yeah.
Previously, we would have referred to the RBS-70 ground-based missile system. That is a component of the MSHORAD system that you would have seen as part of the information that was given. So for us, the main focus for ground-based air defence and air defence procurement outside of the fighters is that capability, which is why I wanted to bring it to your attention today.
No, I appreciate that. Mr. Chair, that's all my questions. I see we're over time.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Hausfather. And with that, I would like to thank our witnesses for coming today and presenting and being here in person. It's nice to have you here in person, and as opposed to doing things virtually as we've done for the last 2 years or so. We do want to thank you for that. If there's any other information that you feel might answer a question that, as you leave, that you thought, oh, I should have said that, please, by all means, put that down in writing. If you'd submit that to the clerk, and the clerk will dispense and spread that amongst the members so that they're aware of that information. And so with that, I would like to thank Mr. Carroll and Mr. Palmer from SAB for coming, and Mr. Narante from Leonardo for being here as well, and thank you very much. As well, the technicians and staff and the interpreters for being here, as well as our analysts and our clerk. And with that, I declare the meeting adjourned.